A routine September flight ends in tragedy. I'm Ashton Mara, and coming up on WVU News, I'll tell you what these 40 ordinary heroes did to change the course of history.
Thousands of pieces of mail are sent every day. I'm Lindsay Burnworth, and straight ahead, I'll tell you how an anthrax scare after 9/11 changed the way your mail is delivered.
When the planes crashed into the World Trade Center on September 11th, people were trapped in stairways just like this one. I'm Erica Moke, and coming up next on WVU News, I'll tell you how university officials are making sure that doesn't happen here. WVU News starts now. Two WV alumni and 2 West Virginians were among the 3,000 who were killed during the terrorist attacks on September 11th. I'm Erica Moke.
Straight ahead, find out how Morgantown residents are still remembering the lives lost and dealing with security changes. I'm Dave Carl, and you're watching WVU News, a newscast produced by television journalism students at West Virginia University.
United Flight 93 was headed for San Francisco when 4 hijackers turned the plane around and directed it toward the U.S. Capitol.
40 passengers worked together to fight back against the hijackers in the cockpit, and last-minute phone calls home gave the world an inside look into what really happened that day.
Now the public is paying tribute to those who sacrificed their lives for others. WVU News reporter Ashton Mara traveled to Shanksville, Pennsylvania for an up-close look at the Flight 93 Memorial. Ashton.
Thanks, Erica and Dave. Memorial visitors are greeted by photos of the 40 brave passengers who lost their lives by diverting that plane, headed to the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Flight 93 Memorial Park Rangers refer to the site where Flight 93 crashed as a cemetery because not all of the bodies from that day have been recovered. The 600-mile-per-hour impact made it difficult to identify each body. I found out while this memorial is so humbling to visit. Pat Petrosky first visited Shanksville, Pennsylvania just weeks after 9/11, but she says she still remembers the feeling she got when looking out over this field for the first time.
You just stood and you looked across the field at the big hole, and all you did was cry.
About 2,000 people a day visit a memorial that now stands where United Flight 93 came down.
There's just a certain presence about this field, about the simplicity of it, about the power of the story, that I don't think we'll probably know the true meaning for years to come.
But before it can be realized, Reinbold says the memorial still needs $10 million to be completed. And officials at a second dedication in Shanksville say their money is also running out. Both the Flight 93 Chapel and the memorial are still struggling to collect enough donations to keep their doors open. But officials and visitors alike say preserving the memory outweighs any cost. They say no price tag is too big when remembering the 40 people who fought back.
They're ordinary citizens, and I think that probably makes the story even stronger when you realize that it could have been any one of us sitting on the plane, and would we have had the courage to do what they did.
Petrosky says it's a sacrifice worth making.
They always come through for America. The love of America is in all of our hearts.
But for now, officials at the Flight 93 Chapel and Memorial say they're hoping America can come through for them. Officials say they hope people will continue to donate toward finishing that $62 million memorial. If you'd like to contribute to the Flight 93 Memorial, you can visit the website at the bottom of your screen.
Thanks, Ashton. When the Twin Towers came crashing down, 2,000 people were still trapped inside.
I recently went to a mock emergency drill to find out how university officials are making sure students stay safe in their home away from home. This is the sound students hear when it's time to drop what they're doing and get out of the building.
Very nervous. You know, the first thing that comes to my mind is 9/11. There's a lot of miscommunication. It's kind of hectic too with all these people, you know. No one really knows what to expect.
But some students still worry that in a real emergency, things won't go so smoothly.
They would get into a panic probably, and I feel like someone probably would have gotten hurt coming from all those stairs.
Studies show when the planes hit the World Trade Center on September 11th, many people inside did not leave immediately because they weren't sure what to do or where to go.
Nothing can take the place of actually walking through a process and leaving the building and rehearsing as if it were real.
More than 5,500 students live in university buildings just like this one, Brook Tower. So when danger strikes, it's important for students to know how to get out of the building fast.
Research from the National Institute of Standards and Technology say only 10% of those inside the World Trade Center had ever entered a stairwell as part of an emergency drill. Thanks to the practices at WVU, students are familiar with every exit route possible.
University officials require these emergency drills to take place at least once a year to ensure student safety.
If you would like to learn more about building emergency plans, you can visit the University Police website. The link is at the bottom of your screen. Schools nationwide are also cracking down on security. The U.S. Postal Service reacted to threats by changing their safety protocol.
You may recall anthrax-laced mail threatened several people just 1 week following the attacks on America, infecting 22 people. 5 died as a result of anthrax inhalation, and the FBI considers it one of the most complex cases in law enforcement history.
WVU News reporter Lindsay Burnworth found out how post offices have changed to keep workers safe. Lindsay?
Thanks, Dave and Erica. 8 pieces of tainted mail were sent to Senate offices and news media outlets around the country a decade ago. The FBI took 9 years before they formally closed the anthrax investigation. I found out exactly what changes have been made to the way people send and receive their mail since then.
The first letters containing anthrax were postmarked September 18, 2001, just 1 week after the 9/11 attacks. What resulted was the death of 5 people and 17 others injured. WVU mail carrier Susie Sullivan says all packages were considered suspicious in the months following September 11th.
We found a box underneath our trucks, and they called just to be on the safe side, because it wasn't anything that should have been there.
The anthrax scare also hit home right here at WVU. A package with white powder came through the mail system. The substance turned out to be no threat, but mail workers say it was a terrifying thought.
Just the fear that it could come into our institution. Yeah, and worry about everybody that you have under you at the time.
But the university's mail system has made some changes since that scare. More than 30,000 pieces of mail go in and out of the university's mail system each day. But before it can be delivered, it must first go through a security process. Letters with large amounts of tape, odd names, or no return address are now subject to search. Employees say they also took special precautions when handling the mail.
And we were wearing masks. We were wearing everything that we needed to protect ourselves within the mail service at that time.
When anthrax was real heavy, then you definitely thought twice about what you were picking up.
Mail carriers say they feel safer because the university is still taking extra precautions, like bringing in trained dogs on a weekly basis.
The FBI's investigation found Dr. Bruce Ivins was responsible for sending the letters containing anthrax. They say he may have been motivated by his concern about future research of a possible anthrax vaccine. Ivins took his own life before he could be formally charged with the crime.
While 5 people were killed by the anthrax poison, nearly 7 million Muslim Americans say they have also been affected by the September 11th attacks. WVU News reporter Matthew White explains how the Muslims in our own community are working to spread a message of peace.
The 10th anniversary of September 11th marks an important time of reflection for our country. It also lets us remember how the Muslim community was treated following those attacks. Muslim student Danyal Sheikh says it was a bad reflection on his religion.
America was targeted. And apparently the people who did it, they said they did it in the name of Islam, which they had nothing to do with Islam.
The Islamic community in Morgantown and across the U.S. faced backlash after September 11th. Imam Sohail Chaudhry says Muslim lives in America changed forever.
That's one thing which happened after 9/11. Muslims were dehumanized, demonized, as if, these are people, aliens who are just trying to take over our country or something like that.
Chaudhry says that Islam's meaning is in peace and submission to one God, not in terrorism.
But unfortunately, the U.S. Justice Department has reported over 800 incidents of violence against people believed to be Muslim since September 11th. The solution to the ignorance is simple.
There is more need now to combat this through education, through making ties, through reaching out to each other.
Sheikh agrees and says it does not matter who you are. This tragedy affected everyone.
Anybody who is literate and who understands, because human life is human life, no matter whichever religion, whoever you are, it's human life.
Sheikh's words should be taken to heart in Morgantown and across the country. Matthew White, WVU News, Morgantown.
58% of Muslim Americans report experiencing more discrimination now than before September 11th.
That's right, Dave. And switching gears, one soccer coach right here at home recounts her own September 11th story. You don't want to miss it.
I'm Kelsey Pape, and coming up on WVU Sports, I'll tell you how a student athlete used the game of soccer to keep her mind off of what was happening in New York City.
The skyline represents a feeling of terror for one former WVU athlete.
That's right, Dave. An assistant soccer coach from New York City was a sophomore at the time of the attacks. WVU News sports reporter Kelsey Pape joins us with more on this story. Kelsey.
Thanks, Dave and Erica. A former WVU athlete and New York native was personally impacted by the events on 9/11. WVU Sports brings out the excitement in both athletes and students. For one WVU athlete, the game provided a distraction from one of the most horrific moments in U.S. history. She was unable to contact her father, who was working in New York City at the time of the attacks.
Lisa Stoya was a sophomore forward for the WVU soccer team at the time of September 11, 2001. She was in class the moment two planes struck the World Trade Center.
You know, when I came in the office, they were like, "Stoya, did you hear what's going on?" And at the time we didn't have TVs, you know, so it's just radio at that point. They had the radio on. And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" You know, and she just had mentioned that the plane had hit the World Trade Center.
Stoya's father, Cosmo Stoya, is a correction officer and was working in New York City that day. Because of poor phone connections, she was unable to get in touch with him after the attacks. She turned to her head coach, Nikki Izzo Brown, and teammates for support.
She had no idea, so I was kind of glad that I was able to be with her when she first got the initial shock of it, because I think we were all in shock.
Izzo Brown gave her team the option of whether or not to practice that day. Stoya and her teammates chose to come together on the field. On September 11, 2001, everyone's eyes were focused on the sky. But for Lisa Stoya, it's what was happening on the ground that got her through that day.
Sports, you know, we see as such an outlet in our lives, you know, something to kind of take your mind off things for a little while.
After 2 long hours, Stoya's father was able to get in contact with her and the rest of her family, letting them know he was okay.
Once the Twin Towers came crashing down, he actually had to go in and start helping people out, and then the next few days he was down at Ground Zero helping out.
10 years later, Stoya says she really respects the people who stand in front of the line of duty and continue to protect our country.
The Stoya family always takes time to reflect on September 11th and pray for families who lost someone that day. Stoya's father still works in New York City and said he will never forget the smell of the debris from all of the smoke and all the dust on the ground. Erica and Dave, back to you.
Thanks, Kelsey. What an inspiring story shared by someone right here at WVU.
That's right, Erica. Those 2 hours must have felt like forever while she was waiting on that phone call. Thanks for tuning in this week for our special edition of WVU News. Remember to visit us online at our website. I'm Dave Carl.
And I'm Erica Moke. You can also watch any of our shows on YouTube. The address is at the bottom of your screen. Plus, follow our reporters on Twitter. Thanks for watching WVU News.